Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar. The title for this video may seem alarming, but yes, I am giving up the virtual machine life, mostly. Now ladies and gentlemen, that might seem like heresy coming from a guy like me that's basically been preaching it for the last year and a half. Now ladies and gentlemen, something that I enjoy is Linux, okay? To understand, some of my favorite content on this channel has been when I ripped on Mac using virtual machines, when I've literally built virtual machines and shown you guys how to virtualize Windows 10 and play video games underneath it. It's been some of my most favorite content to make, and at times some of the most popular content. I'm pretty sure some of you people have only known me as the guy that makes virtual machines and basically simps for Linux. But the reality is, I hate Windows. I hate using Windows, and I feel dirty inside every time I have to touch anything Microsoft related on my computer. See, I'm one of those people where if I pay over $1,000 to build a computer, I better own that computer. I always hate it when I build it out of nice parts, and then suddenly I have to install this decrepit old operating system from Bill Gates's wet fart back in the day. All right, now it became Satya Nadella's. I personally preferred it during the Steve Ballmer era when that dude came out screaming about developers. Yeah, that was a time. I feel dirty knowing that I'm using an operating system that I basically don't even own in its conception. You know, Windows is a service-based system. You download it from their site, you burn it to a flash drive, and you install it. If you ever went, "But Muya, have you tried activating Windows?" No, I don't. I'm never going to activate Windows. I'm always going to use that for free. You know why? Because every time I use it, whether I activate it or I don't, it's always scanning my system for telemetry. Look, I'm not going to jump into the conspiracy hardcore. I think you can find it on any other tech channel where everyone looks at every time they install Windows and they always have to click no on the, "Can we advertise to you? Can we take some of your data?" Yeah, you still think they're not doing anything like that? I don't live in a blissful world. But ladies and gentlemen, when I look at Windows 10 and I remember the times that I have to update my operating system, and I completely realize that my God, I literally can't do anything with the computer while it's updating. Now, this divorce of virtual machine love isn't actually spawned out of nowhere. I still use virtual machines when I'm browsing the internet or checking out the deep web, but the reality of it is that I use Windows primarily to edit videos and play video games, play multiplayer video games. Now, to edit videos, I've switched to a Mac virtual machine, like you've seen in some of my other videos, and I just straight up bought a Mac at this point. They're a bit better for editing. Unix is a lot more stable when you're doing bigger videos like 4-hour Metal Gear videos compared to that Windows side. Now, with Windows, I need to use Windows to game and play online. A lot of my favorite games that I play multiplayer with have anti-cheats built in. So games like Rainbow Six Siege, which I dramatically have stopped playing ever since they started basically banning away virtual machine users. I have not played games like Apex Legends because of anti-cheat. I haven't played a lot of games with anti-cheat. It's not that I don't want to play them, it's that I just don't really feel like firing up Windows, even under a virtual machine, to give those games the time of my day. And that's why my playtime on Rainbow Six Siege has basically diminished. It's just, it doesn't support the operating system I use. I don't care. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Valve, the chads that they are, have basically done what I consider to be the impossible. Now, if you understand, Valve basically are releasing the Steam Deck, which is a pretty cool handheld gaming PC that you can buy from Valve, and you can play a lot of your Steam games on the go. Now, this system comes with Linux. See, Valve isn't paying Microsoft for a Windows license per Steam Deck. What they're doing is they're deploying their own version of Linux, their own fork, and they're using something called Steam Proton. If you don't know what Proton is, it's the cool piece of technology that allows you to play most of your Windows games underneath Linux. So to understand here, ladies and gentlemen, you can play games right now like Diablo 2 Resurrected, which is a brand new game that actually does work underneath Linux. In fact, I can show you gameplay footage of it. I literally bought it just to prove the point. You can play games like Yakuza, which is one of my favorite single-player games. You can play games like Cyberpunk, Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, basically some of the biggest single-player games, provided they don't have fucky DRM and anti-cheats, actually run relatively flawlessly underneath Linux. Yeah, there are some growing pains, but if you're a gamer like me that mostly does single-player gaming and you're on the PC, it's not too bad to switch. Now, why am I saying Valve? Well, aside from developing Proton, Valve is a pretty big company. And so Valve has been partnering with companies like Epic Games to basically spread the Epic Easy Anti-Cheat, which is what they own, and spread it over to Linux, Mac, and Steam Deck. So yeah, 2 days ago, fucking Epic basically announced this. Now developers have to go in and code this into the system, but it shows you that Linux can actually be supported. So if you play something like Apex Legends, if you play something like Halo Master Chief Collection, congratulations. Sooner or later, you'll be able to play them underneath Linux, meaning that you don't have to use Windows anymore, meaning that you don't have to go and give in to Microsoft's demands, meaning that you have actual competition in the PC space. Now, believe it or not, BattlEye, which is the anti-cheat gold standard, I think that might be misleading. That is bullshit. Now, BattlEye is something that I've had a problem with, all right? This is what Rainbow Six Siege uses. And believe it or not, Rainbow Six Siege is still filled to the brim with some of the worst hackers you've ever found. Now, BattlEye actually pimps out their crappy anti-cheat to basically a bunch of other games. Arma 3, PUBG, Fortnite, Rainbow Six Siege, and even Ark Survival Evolved. So if you ever realize why there's a crap ton of hackers on there, boy oh boy, it might be the fact that they're basically pimping themselves out to the anti-cheat gold standard. Now, BattlEye over here has said, BattlEye has provided native Linux and Mac support for a long time, and we can announce that we'll also support the upcoming Steam Deck. This will be done on an opt-in basis with game developers choosing whether they want to allow it or not. So basically, if you're Ubisoft, there is actually no good fucking reason to prevent this game from Rainbow Six Siege from running underneath Linux. If Ubisoft opts in, that means us Linux gamers can actually play Rainbow Six Siege without virtual machines, without lining the TOS of the anti-cheat, without almost getting our accounts banned, just like normal level-headed people. So in this case, since Rainbow Six Siege has been updated to support graphic APIs like Vulkan, running it underneath Linux should be a cakewalk. In fact, running it underneath Linux is already kind of a cakewalk. If you just disable the anti-cheat, Rainbow Six Siege actually appears to work pretty flawlessly. So the only thing holding it back is the anti-cheat. Now, hopefully other developers fall suit into this, which would actually be the greatest boon for Linux users out there. Because at the end of the day, this is kind of the thing that we need. If this comes into fruition, this means that basically 85% of the reason I fire up a Windows 10 graphic virtual machine is basically null and void. And this basically promotes Linux into the higher zenith. To understand, Linux is finally on this trend where it's about to be a serious competitor. Now, I've always kind of hated the terminology where people look at Linux as like the poor man's operating system. People download something for free and have a good time. Linux is everywhere. You're probably using it if you have an Android phone, all right? Definitely if you have an Android phone. It literally uses the Linux kernel. Hell, the Mutaphone, which is an Android phone, uses the Linux kernel. I compiled the Mutaphone software underneath a Linux virtual machine. Do you know that if you're on any website, any server, they're basically just using Linux these days? Now, 5 years ago, I'd never have promoted Linux as an average daily driver. But honestly, in the last 5 years, it's become pretty feature complete with Windows. Now, you can go on the internet and you can download yourself some Ubuntu, and before somebody says, oh, but Muna, that's an easy mode operating system, I'm not trying to turn people into fucking computer engineers and like terminal gods overnight. If you need ease of use, trust me, it's there for you. And if you go all the way down to Arch Linux, this is what some people consider to be the final god. As long as you follow the installation tutorial on their own wiki for like 15 minutes, you'll be a computer genius in no time. This is not the hardest thing to do. Now, Linux is great because it's open source. And what the open source community means for Linux is, since it's one of the largest projects, I want you to imagine companies like Microsoft, Nvidia, Red Hat, the NSA, big organizations all collaborate and basically patch and keep Linux as updated as it can. And that means that you're basically using the collective efforts of every one of these big companies, and there's almost very little negatives in the space. Now, Windows is still better in a lot of cases. If you have an HDR monitor, Windows is still there. If you want to play the latest and greatest games with ray tracing and all that, Windows is still the best option. If you're an enthusiast gamer, Windows is still the best option, all right? If you're a Game Pass horde, Windows is obviously going to be the option for you. But switching over to Linux has actually become pretty easier. Listen, most of the stuff we do is on a web browser. You're watching this video probably on a web browser, okay? You probably do most of your stuff on a web browser. If you're on Discord, congratulations. That's a fancy app that's basically just a web browser running. What I'm trying to say is a lot of the applications and tools that we use work pretty much feature complete on Linux anyways. So there's almost no reason for you not to go in and try it. And that's one of the things that I want to push with this video. Look, a lot of channels out there are making excellent content for Linux, okay? You've got the beautiful team at Linus Tech Tips. You've got Anthony over there absolutely killing it with those videos. You've got Linux Gamer. You've got Level 1 Techs. You've got plenty of YouTube channels out there promoting it. And I feel like that's the one thing I want to promote. In a time like this, it's always a great skill to pick up and give it a chance. I know that people get kind of scared with some of the Linux stuff these days, like maybe it's overly complicated. One of the best memes that I've ever seen, watch this one, is Linux users installing a web browser. This is the funniest stuff I've ever seen because it's just a bunch of terminal shit going on, password decryptors, and a younger version of me. Now, ladies and gentlemen, while this is a funny meme, there's definitely going to be people taking this really seriously. Like, bro, relax, it's a joke after all. Of course, installing a web browser isn't that difficult. If you type in the word sudo for super user, your package manager of choice, mine is Pacman, -S for the argument, and type in something like Firefox, all you can do is hit the words yes, and bam, as I'm using Firefox, I'm reinstalling it. Now, to understand, if that sounded a little bit complicated to you, this is the stuff that you pick up pretty quickly if you use the system. If you're trying to learn about computers or you want to actually own the entire system, this is where it's at. Honestly, this news might not seem like the biggest thing to a lot of people, but for a nerd like me and a heavy Linux user for years at this point, this is absolutely amazing news. And to be honest with you, with devices like the Steam Deck and various little small micro gaming PCs, the more popular the stuff gets, the more Linux's adoption rate increases. Listen, right now, 90% of the desktop laptop community all use Windows. Windows is not going anywhere, all right? Mac has like 9% of the share out there. Linux users on the desktop and laptop make like 1% of the market share as far as I know. Maybe like 2-3%. I'm being kind of like conservative. But the idea is the more popular this gets and the more people push this instead of Windows, the more that community evolves. And eventually one day we'll go from translating Windows games to actually natively getting these titles. This is the one growing pain that we need to get over in order to actually have competition in the Windows marketplace. I guess one of the last ways I kind of want to get into this is that if you just want to look at this real quick, ladies and gentlemen, you can update your Linux operating system without it consuming your entire time, okay? You know, on Windows, when it just blanks out the screen to blue and it's like, updating. Here's an update for Linux, all right? So you can see I've got the packages lined up. I hit the word yes, and as I'm talking, recording the video, having a good time, the actual system is updating. This is one of the coolest features of Linux that everyone that I show this to get absolutely blown away. Wait, you're telling me you can actually use your computer while it's updating? Yeah, dude, welcome to 2021. Congratulations, bucko. You finally caught up. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to say, ladies and gentlemen. Valve is doing some really awesome things, and I gotta give Epic Games credit for actually working with Valve in solving this. And as much as I hate to give BattleEye any form of credit because of how Rainbow Six Siege is, I gotta give them some credit. So congratulations. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to understand where the anti-cheat gets into it, Linux gaming is getting better, okay? When you look at games like Diablo 2 Resurrected, it runs as good as it would on a Windows PC. Now, where it starts to fail is you load up something like Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, or Warzone, or Modern Warfare. I think those are the same games. But ladies and gentlemen, at that point, the system fails. And that's a combination from a lot of Windows exclusive graphic APIs, some issues with the translation, and definitely the goddamn anti-cheat and DRM solution. And speaking of DRM, this solution isn't entirely perfect yet. We're still going to have games with shitty digital rights management, which is one of the things that I absolutely hate on PC gaming, absolutely ruining it for us Linux boys and girls out there. But, of course, these are growing pains. And this news is probably some of the biggest news of 2021. And this might actually make 2022 the year of the Linux desktop. Finally, that meme can die. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it. If you dislike it, I am